Designer Notes, Subject 17. What subject would you like us to discuss next? Subscribe and comment to let us know. Love and hate. These may be the three words that we could describe Invicta, the watch brand. The same three words can also be said of Rolex, Seiko, Omega, Tag Heuer, Fossil, Apple, so it's not really unique to Invicta alone. But for the sake of sparing ourselves the rage and frustrating arguments, we're going to try and show you why you should actually appreciate Invicta, especially the Prodiver line. Let's summarize Invicta's history. Invicta was founded by Raphael Picard and Lachaux de Fond way back in 1837. At its conception, Invicta offered luxury quality watch pieces at affordable prices. In the 1970s, like many watch companies, Invicta stopped production because they could not compete with the mighty and more affordable quartz watches. But in 1991, Invicta was acquired by an American banking firm and relaunched the brand with the Invicta Prodiver line, which proved to be a hit with the masses. To the majority of the population, it is virtually unknown that the Prodiver is based very closely to the Rolex Submariner. For those in the know, it should go on without saying that the Prodiver is the affordable alternative to people who don't have 7 grand burning a hole in their pocket. The Prodiver resembles the Submariner so closely that if we examine the Prodiver, we might just as well review the Rolex Submariner. But alas, we must recognize that there are clear differences between the two. The obvious similarity with this particular model, the Prodiver 89280B, is the dual-tone color with the stainless steel construction highlighted by the gold-plated center links, crown, and bezel. The dial is sunburst, similar to the Rolex 116613, with the logo at the 12 o'clock and a paragraph of text at the 6 o'clock position. The polished areas are particularly identical to the Rolex 116613, mainly at the sides of the case, the center links, and the sides of the bracelet. The bezel for the Prodiver is clearly made of aluminum, but with a glossy finish that resembles, albeit vaguely, the Submariner's ceramic bezel. It should be noted that Rolex also used to manufacture Submariners with aluminum bezel inserts, but of course at a better quality than that of the current Prodiver line. The crystal for the Prodiver is made of what it calls the flame fusion crystal, which is a more durable composition of mineral crystals. This is still inferior compared to the sapphire crystals, but it gets the job done and the message across. There is also a Cyclops eye that Rolex popularized. The hands are also lifted straight out of Rolex design, with the Mercedes hour hands and the sword-style minute hands. It does have a unique seconds hand with an Invicta counterbalance. The hour markers are not loomed, but the hands are at least. The band is probably the biggest compromise for the Prodiver. Yes, it has gold-plated center links, but it collects scratches rather easily. And they are considerably lighter compared to the Rolex Submariner's bracelet. The clasp too is stamped steel, similar to those cheaper Seiko and Citizen watch bands. But Invicta does this for a good reason. Saving costs is not a mysterious secret formula that is the stuff of dreams and fantasies. All self-respecting companies that want to stay in business will consider cost saving wherever they could. Invicta, of course, cut costs in this watch wherever they could. But mainly, it's the band that we see this more prominently. All the cost savings brought us some of the better values for this watch at its price point. This is one of the reasons why you should consider the Prodiver. This Prodiver is an automatic watch that uses the NH35A movement, a legendary movement that's hacking, self-winding, and can be manually wound. This is a clear advantage over the Seiko SKX, ironically, which does not have the manual winding and hacking movement. Both movements, of course, came from Seiko, but that's Seiko's decision that we have to live with. Seeing that this is an NH35A movement, you can expect, on paper, around 20 to 40 seconds of variations per day. But the Japanese, being modest and all, actually is modest with that 40 seconds. Because this one actually keeps better time than that. One owner even remarked it stayed 14 seconds faster for a week. That's chronometer grade timekeeping that's found only at $4,000 watches in general. Another plus is that Invicta chose to display this movement and went a step further and decorated the movement with its signature yellow color. This is a hit or miss depending on which watch enthusiast you ask, but at a design standpoint, this is a better value considering it's steel and crystal versus just stamped steel on other dive watches. Speaking of other dive watches, when put together with a more contemporary diver such as the Tissot Sea Star, it's noticeably smaller at 40 millimeters. This is a classic case size that vintage watch lovers, well, love. Many watch aficionados actually are pointing out that we are in general going back to the 40 to 39 millimeter case sizes, like the older watches of the 70s and 80s. It's also worth noting that the case is finished both in polish and circular brushing over the lug areas and side. This is a welcome contrast that, of course, makes the Rolex Submariner a desirable watch, and now you can have the same feeling with the Pro Diver. The crown is screwed down as expected of 200-meter dive watches. It's protected by reasonable crown guards and it's signed with the Invicta Cross. There are other signatures to the watch. In fact, that is one of the biggest complaints, saying this watch is peppered with Invicta logos and branding. Much of the complaint is on the left side of the case with the Invicta engraving. However, many fail to consider that this side tends to be covered by the wearer's sleeve. So it's not really such a big deal after all. The bezel action is nothing to write mom about, and it does the job that it's meant to do. It is a little harder to turn the bezel compared to the mighty Submariner because of the grooves being a little bit shallower. But the bezel insert is very vibrant and really reflects light nicely, and even displays different hues of blues under certain angles. In daylight, this watch is just stunning. If you ever fantasize how glorious looking the Rolex 116613 might be in person, this Pro Diver is the closest you can get to actually owning one. Owning a Rolex is a plateau of a challenge to many that it becomes a lifelong achievement once attained. A milestone worth not just writing mom about, it feels more like writing a 20-minute graduation speech, educating the next generation of the goal that they should be aiming for. But behind this prestige and fame that Rolex, and in fact other luxury brand watches have, is a whole criminal market that capitalizes on these very same aspirations of attaining a Submariner at a far more affordable price. Counterfeits, fakes, replicas, whatever they may be called these days, the sheer goal of these watches are to merely give you the perception of an achievement without the effort behind it. An empty accomplishment. If you bought a replica Submariner, bearing its crown on the dial and the iconic design, you're probably educated enough to know what a Rolex is. People looking at you might not know better, but you do. Every single day you wear this replica, you are reminded of how much you came short of something. The Invicta Pro Diver, on the other hand, knows what it is. It's paying homage to a great and iconic watch, and it invites you to not come short of the ultimate goal, but rather step forward closer to it. You know it's not a Submariner, but it reminds you that one day your journey will end and that the destination is a grail worth striving for. This journey into watch collecting often starts with smaller achievements like graduating from your fossils and guest watches to an automatic Seiko or Invicta. If you ignore all the design mishaps of Invicta, with the Pro Diver, there's an actual legitimate appreciation you can build upon as a watch collector. This is what makes Invicta, dare we say, important today. It created a business model that caters to all the watch consumers, whether they like massive popular watches or the pure-hearted enthusiast who values function, some heritage, and craft. This accessibility is what sets off people to watch collecting, and in turn, keeps the watch industry relevant. That's worth appreciating Invicta for. despite all the love and hate.